The story of the Russia-Ukraine conflict begins, paradoxically, with a shared past. Both nations trace their roots back to the medieval kingdom of Kyivan Rus, a sprawling realm that flourished between the 9th and 13th centuries. This shared heritage is most evident in the city of Kyiv, the ancient capital of Kyivan Rus, and today the heart of independent Ukraine. Kyiv's cultural and religious significance resonates deeply in both Russian and Ukrainian consciousness. It is here, in the Dnieper River Valley, that the seeds of both nations were sown. However, even within this shared cradle, the seeds of separate identities were already present. Kyivan Rus was not a monolithic entity, but a loose federation of principalities, each with its own distinct character. While united by common ancestry, language, and Orthodox Christian faith, these principalities also exhibited regional variations in dialect, customs, and political outlook. These subtle differences, nurtured over centuries, would eventually contribute to the distinct historical paths of Ukraine and Russia. The Mongol invasion in the 13th century shattered the unity of Kyivan Rus. The Mongol conquest brought devastation and fragmentation, irrevocably altering the political landscape of Eastern Europe. While both Ukrainian and Russian lands endured Mongol domination, they experienced it in distinct ways. This divergence under Mongol rule would further shape their distinct historical trajectories, setting the stage for the complex relationship that characterizes them today. The legacy of Kyivan Rus is thus a double-edged sword. It provides a powerful symbol of shared heritage and common ground. Yet, it also masks the reality of centuries of separate development and diverging identities. This inherent tension lies at the heart of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, shaping both the historical narrative and the contemporary geopolitical landscape. After the fall of Kyivan Rus, the historical paths of Russia and Ukraine diverged significantly. While the principalities that would eventually coalesce into the Grand Duchy of Moscow fell under Mongol rule, Ukrainian lands were gradually incorporated into the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and later the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. This westward shift had a profound impact on Ukrainian culture and identity. Under Lithuanian and Polish rule, Ukrainians were exposed to Western European influences, particularly in the realms of law, governance, and religion. This exposure fostered a distinct Ukrainian culture, blending Eastern Slavic roots with Western European elements. The Ukrainian language, while sharing common ancestry with Russian, developed its own unique characteristics, influenced by Polish and Lithuanian vocabulary and grammar. A pivotal development in the formation of Ukrainian identity was the emergence of the Cossacks, a warrior class of free adventurers, renowned for their military prowess and spirit of independence. The Cossacks, based in the vast steppes of southeastern Ukraine, carved out a semi-autonomous existence, resisting encroachment from both the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Crimean Khanate. The Cossack hetmanate, established in the mid-17th century, became a symbol of Ukrainian aspirations for self-rule and resistance against external domination. The diverging historical experiences of Ukrainians and Russians after Kyivan Rus led to the formation of distinct national identities. While Ukrainians forged their identity through centuries of interaction with Western powers and struggles for autonomy, Russians, under Muscovite rule, developed a sense of national consciousness rooted in Orthodox Christianity and a centralized autocratic political tradition. This divergence, often overlooked or downplayed, is crucial for understanding the roots of the current conflict. The year 1654 marked a turning point in Ukrainian-Russian relations with the signing of the Treaty of Pereyaslav. This treaty, concluded between the Cossack hetman Bohdan Khmelnytsky and the Tsardom of Russia, aimed to secure Russian protection for the Cossack hetmanate against Polish aggression. However, the treaty's interpretation and long-term consequences have been fiercely contested ever since. From the Russian perspective, the Treaty of Pereyaslav represented a reunification of historically Russian lands and a restoration of the unity shattered by the Mongol invasion. This narrative, deeply ingrained in Russian historiography, underpins the notion of a triune Russian nation encompassing Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians. Ukrainians, however, view the treaty through a different lens. While acknowledging the strategic considerations that led Khmelnytsky to seek Russian aid, they emphasize the treaty's provisions for Cossack autonomy within the Russian state. Rather than a reunification, they see the treaty as a pragmatic alliance that gradually transformed into subjugation as Russian czars steadily encroached upon Cossack liberties and Ukrainian autonomy. The Treaty of Pereyaslav, therefore, serves as a potent symbol of the contrasting historical narratives that fuel the current conflict. For Russia, it represents the historical inevitability of Ukrainian integration into the Russian world. For Ukraine, it marks the beginning of centuries of struggle against Russian domination and the suppression of Ukrainian identity. During the Soviet era, Ukraine was one of the key republics within the Soviet Union. It played a significant role in the USSR's economy, particularly in agriculture and industry. However, this period was also marked by severe repression, including the devastating Holodomor famine in the 1930s, which resulted in the deaths of millions of Ukrainians. The Soviet regime's policies aimed to suppress Ukrainian culture and identity, yet despite these efforts, a strong sense of national consciousness persisted among the people. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine declared its independence, sparking a resurgence of national identity and pride. This period saw the rise of modern Ukrainian nationalism, characterized by a renewed emphasis on the Ukrainian language, culture, and history. The Orange Revolution in 2004 and the Euromaidan protests in 2013 further galvanized the nation's desire for democratic reforms and closer ties with the West. These movements were pivotal in shaping contemporary Ukraine and its aspirations for the future. Under Vladimir Putin's leadership, Russian nationalism has become a central aspect of the country's political landscape. Putin has often invoked historical narratives and national pride to consolidate his power and justify his policies. This resurgence of nationalism has been accompanied by a more assertive foreign policy, particularly in the post-Soviet space. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine are prime examples of how Russian nationalism under Putin has influenced regional dynamics and heightened tensions with the West. The conflict in Ukraine, which began in 2014, has had far-reaching implications, not just for Ukraine and Russia, but for the entire international community. The annexation of Crimea and the war in Donbas have led to significant loss of life and displacement of people. This conflict has also strained relations between Russia and the West, leading to economic sanctions and a new era of geopolitical rivalry. As the situation continues to evolve, the world watches closely, hoping for a resolution that can bring lasting peace and stability to the region.